I believe, as I said, I respect, I honor, I'm committed to the church as is. But if this were a startup, I will not invest in it if it tells me I can change the world. It's changing lives, it's changing people, but it's not changing the world. So we need to rediscover the Ekklesia as God's instrument for world transformation.
In listening to Pastor David, there was an awareness of the same problem. One of the people that he mentioned was Ed Silvoso, who I happened to know of and was local to the area, so I thought I'd go and visit him and find out what more I could learn about the church and the way it was meant to be structured.
Well, I believe in the church, I'm committed to the church, and I love the church as is. But at the same time, when we read the scriptures, what we read about the church there is not what we see when we go to church here. So we need to navigate that tension, loving and affirming what we have, but not allowing that to lock us into a model that is not there in the scriptures. And so what was very enlightening for me was to realize that in Jesus' days, there were three institutions: the temple, the synagogue, and the church. The church already existed. The word translated church in Greek is the word ekklesia. And Jesus didn't say, I will build my temple. He didn't say, I will build my synagogue, which were very structured, physical locations with liturgy and a program. But he picked a secular institution that was created by the Greeks. The Greeks created the Ekklesia, and it was an assembly of male warriors who have served in the army for 2 years, and now they have the authority to protect the city. So in Jesus' days, I'm sure he blew the disciples away when he said, I will build my Ekklesia, because that will be like saying, I will build my board of directors. So Jesus picked an institution that was secular, but he said, there is one already called the gates of Hades, and I will build mine, and mine will prevail against the gates of Hades. So when that paradigm shifted, I began to understand why the church, what we call the church, grew so fast, because it didn't depend on a building, on a liturgy. It had leadership appointed by God, anointed by God. It had allegiance to the Word of God and so forth. But it was never a building. It was always people. King James, he was one of the most evil kings ever to rule England. He's the one that imprisoned and persecuted the pilgrims. He killed his relatives. This guy coined the term, kings are kings by divine right. We give account to no one. But then he ran into a problem. William Tyndale translated the Bible, but he translated correctly the word Ekklesia as assembly. And that posed a threat to a king who believed in the divine right of kings. And what do you mean that a group of people will gather in the name of the Lord and they will have authority over church affairs when I am the head of the church? So he convened 47 scholars and told them, give me a new translation, except that he placed 15 restrictions on them. And restriction number 3 was, you cannot translate Ekklesia as assembly. You must translate it as church. And by then, church was a building with a cross, with a pulpit, with pews, with a choir, and with liturgy. And that's where we went wrong. Pastors are called and anointed to equip the people for the people to do the work of the ministry. Well, inside the 4 walls of the church, it's very limited how much ministry 1,000 people can do. If we realize that the place where I work is the place where I should minister. And that ecclesia can be their school, can be their business, can be the government building where they work or they preside, and that will transform society, and nation shall be safe.